Hey guys, how's it going? This is Waj, and in this video we're doing a head-to-head, side-by-side, hands-on comparison of the HTC One M8 versus the iPhone 6. Now this is going to really illustrate the difference between a really high-quality, well-made Android smartphone that's in the lineup of the HTC One M8 versus obviously the current lineup of iPhones, the new iPhone 6. They're fairly similar in terms of overall quality, build components, and overall experience, and I really want to see how they fare up against each other. So this is great for anybody looking towards either getting the iPhone 6 and they're kind of interested in how the HTC One M8 compares against it, because it's kind of one of the smaller Android smartphones, if you can believe it or not, at 5-inch, but it's really that build quality that separates it from everything else. So stay tuned, and this should be an interesting comparison. Now, the first thing that we're going to take a look at is the physical differences and overall dimensions of the HTC One M8 versus the iPhone 6. Starting with the side-by-side comparison, as you can see over here, our iPhone 6 over here has a height about 138.1 millimeters, a width about 67 millimeters, and our HTC One is a little bit taller, measuring about 146.4 millimeters and 70.6 millimeters in terms of its width. Now, the thickness is quite a big differences between these two handsets. The iPhone 6 is very thin, only measuring about 6.9 millimeters versus the M8 measuring a pretty hefty 9.4 millimeters. Now, the weight on these two devices are also pretty significantly different. The iPhone 6 Plus is very light, only 128 grams versus 160 grams on the HTC One M8. Now, thankfully, in terms of construction, this is one Android phone that can definitely compete against the iPhone lineup of products. They're both made out of really high quality materials, aluminum construction. The chassis, overall fit and finish are very, very on par with each other. The HTC One M8 certainly has that over many other phones in its category. In terms of design and comfort, obviously the iPhone 6 Plus has a curved design in terms of corners, so it's very comfortable to hold. The HTC One M8 also has a nice rounded curve on the back, so it just fits like a glove in your hand without too many issue. I think overall, in terms of ergonomics, you're gonna have to put both these two side by side in your hand and kind of feel the difference. And if it was up to me, I think the iPhone 6 is definitely a better fit for me, because I could still lie it down on a table and it'll be flat, versus the HTC One certainly rocks back and forth here and there. Now, one unique feature of the iPhone 6 is obviously it has that fingerprint sensor in the home button, which is very robust and quite convenient for unlocking your phone and paying through PayPal, and it has a whole bunch of different application specific needs. And if you're interested in having a fingerprint scanner, it's certainly the best available on any smartphone. However, one big physical difference of the HTC One M8 is the stereo speaker integration, which is probably one of the best speaker configurations on any smartphone. And as you can see over here, we'll do a quick test to demonstrate the differences between the external speakers. Now, in terms of models and different memory options, the iPhone 6 has basically 16, 64, and 128 gigabyte sizes available. The HTC One M8 is limited in terms of different models in terms of memory, but thankfully it has a micro SD expansion slot, so you can upgrade the memory up to 128 gigabytes. Now, moving forward and looking at the displays on these two smartphones, you can see that size-wise they're fairly similar. The iPhone 6 is a little bit smaller, measuring about about 4.7 inches versus the 5-inch display on the HTC One M8. But in terms of resolution, we also have a little bit of a difference. 1920 by 1080 is the resolution on the HTC One M8 with a PPI about 441 versus the iPhone 6 having a new resolution of 1334 by 750 and having a PPI about 326. And overall, the display technology is very similar. They're both using LED backlit displays with the capability of displaying up to 16 million colors. Glass technology is also very, very similar. Unfortunately, we do not have sapphire crystal glass display on the iPhone 6. We're still waiting for that technology to mature, and hopefully we'll see that kind of glass technology being employed in future smartphones. But both in respect are fairly resistant to your day-to-day scratches and fairly good in terms of durability. If you're interested in a more in-depth analysis on how the iPhone 6 is in terms of different durability tests, definitely check out our video that we put out in testing out how resistant it is to different scratches and things like that, as well as different drop tests. So check out those videos if you have the time. Moving along, taking a look at the internal specifications of both these two devices, the HTC M8 is using a Snapdragon 801 quad-core chip clocked at about 2.3 GHz with 2 gigs of RAM. The Apple iPhone 6 is using Apple's own A8 dual-core processor clocked about 1.4 with a M8 motion co-processor, which is going to take care of a lot of the gyroscopic and accelerometer computations, as well as calculating elevation and height. So if you do a lot of hiking and stuff like that, it's going to track your activity that way. It only has 1 gig of memory, unfortunately. RAM hopefully will be upgraded in the next model, but iOS is pretty easy in terms of running, and it's not really a big system hog that Android can be at sometimes, but it'll certainly take care of most of your day-to-day needs. Now, in terms of actual performance tests, we're going to put these phones side by side and run a couple of benchmarks to see how the internal components fare up against each other. And in order to do that, we're going to do a Antutu benchmark. Now, looking at the scores, you can see that the HTC One has a slight advantage in terms of a multi-core threaded applications according to Antutu, but in terms of single-core applications, the iPhone's A8 processor certainly has a huge advantage compared to most Snapdragon 801 chips. Now, in terms of connectivity, both devices have Bluetooth 4.0, NFC capabilities, as well as dual bandwidth AC Wi-Fi capabilities. They're also going to integrate well into their corresponding smart devices. Obviously, Apple has the new Apple Watch that's going to come out, so you'll be able to do a whole bunch of different interactions between most iOS devices that have been currently released within the past couple of years. And obviously, the HTC One M8 is going to integrate well with any of the Android Wear spec of wearable devices, including the Moto 360 and things like that. Now, looking at the camera capabilities of both of these two smartphones, you'll notice a pretty different kind of aspect on the cameras. Now, the HTC One M8 is using its dual pixel technology, which is a fairly large sensor, very similar size overall in terms of pixel density of the iPhone 6, but it only has a 4 megapixel sensor in terms of overall resolution. But even though it can shoot in really low lit conditions and you can see within shadows, there's still a lot of grain and a lot of noise within most of its low light images. And this is certainly a little bit the case on the iPhone side, but the iPhone just manages to do better in terms of processing their images a little bit better in terms of noise and things like that. And even though the HTC One M8 it may be better in terms of overall low light performance, I would still recommend the iPhone's camera just in terms of its overall capabilities. And one of the big capabilities this year is phase detection autofocusing, very fast autofocusing capabilities. The HTC One M8 is just as fast as well. And when we take a look at the still image comparison side by side, you can notice that both cameras do a fairly good job overall, although I would definitely prefer the iPhone 6's camera. It just feels and looks a little bit more normal, but certainly certainly the HTC One M8 is not going to look bad when you're distributing your images online or for Instagram and things like that. Now, in terms of video, there is a big difference here. I think the HTC One M8 is certainly on par what the iPhone 6 can do, but one of my big favorite features of the new iPhone 6 is the new slow motion recording capabilities at 240 frames per second, which is certainly a lot better than the 120 frames per second than the HTC One M8 can do. Moving forward, the last thing that we're going to talk about is the battery performance on these two smartphones. They're very similar in terms of they're both non-removable, so you cannot replace the batteries, unlike some of the Android phones that we tested out earlier in this series. In terms of size, the HTC One M8 has a 2600 milliamp hour battery, which is fairly good, and it gets you mostly throughout the day, and it's really on par with what the iPhone 6 can do in terms of most regards. Now, the HTC One M8 has a couple of battery saving modes, which should give you pretty decent battery performance that will give you a little bit better than a day. And obviously with the iPhone, you could just be mindful on how you use the phone and get throughout the day without any big issues whatsoever. So both are fairly similar when it comes to battery performance. But that's really it, guys. If you have any specific question on how the HTC One M8 compares against the new iPhone 6, definitely check that comment section below, and we'll see if we can help you out in any way possible. Thank you so much for your support and for liking our videos, and definitely check out our other comparisons that we have lined up if you're interested in how the LG G3 compares against the new iPhone 6, or even how the Samsung Galaxy S5 fares against the new iPhone 6. Check back to our channel to find those comparisons. Make sure to give us a thumbs up if you like the video, and thank you again for watching. We'll see you later. Take care.